Hey guys, thanks for the click. I really do appreciate it. About a month ago, I received my Mira 7 from AEON. And trust me, it's taken just about every day in that month for me to prepare this laser to do the first cut. So let me tell you some of the things I did, and probably some of the things you're gonna have to do as well. The first thing I did is I received shipment from UPS, and I had the UPS guy wheel the crate into my garage. The next day or so, I ended up unboxing it. I removed the Mira 7 from the crate. Then after that, I ended up assembling the stand. Once the stand was assembled, I moved the stand into my project room. Now here's the hard part. I ended up having to coordinate time with my brothers so that we can move this 400-pound tank into this room. Well, they arrived on time, we got it moved, we had a good time, all was good. So the next day or so, I ended up hooking up the exhaust system. I hooked up a 6-inch hose from the back of the laser to the window so that when the laser cuts, it can vent the fumes through the ducting to the outside world. The next thing I did after that is I filled up the chiller with water, just don't overfill it. And the last and final thing I had to do before I could even think about cutting was aligning the mirrors. Now that was a bit intimidating, but I ended up getting it done. So guys, those are all the things I had to do before I could even think about doing the first cut. Well, I'm there now, and I'm going to show you how I ended up making my first cut on my Mira 7. So let's go and let's get this thing started.
Alright guys, thanks for the click and welcome back. Before we get started, and before we even turn on the Mira 7, and before we physically connect it to the computer, let's go ahead and create a folder on your computer's desktop. And let's name it Mira 7 Important Setup Files. This folder will soon contain the 3 files you need to get started. These 3 files will get your computer to talk to the laser and get your laser to talk to the Lightburn software. And before you know it, you will quickly set everything up to make your first cut on your Mira 7. It's really easy, so let's go ahead and get started now. Now let's go get our first file. Open up Google and type in Lightburn Download in the search window and hit enter. When the results show up, click on the one that says Download/Trial Lightburn Software. This will take you to the Lightburn download page. This page will allow you to download the version of Lightburn you need for the type of computer you own. Since I own a Windows PC, I will select the Download Lightburn for Windows 64-bit. Once clicked, it downloads it to your Downloads folder. Open up the Downloads folder and cut and paste the file into the Mira 7 Important Setup File folder that we created on the desktop. Alright, we now have our first file, which is the file that we will use to install the Lightburn software. Now let's go get our second important file. This file will be found on the USB drive that came with your laser. My thumb drive was zip tied to the gantry, and it was attached to a key on a small key ring. It wasn't labeled, so I labeled it. So let's go ahead and plug it into the computer's USB port. Once inserted, it will open up the contents of the USB drive. You will find a few folders and a few files. You want to open up the settings folder. Once open, you will see another folder and about 6 other files. Now find the file that's called Mira 7 USB.lbdev. This is the driver for the Mira 7. So let's right click on that file and copy and paste it into our folder that we created on our desktop. Alright, we now have our second important file copied to our folder. Now let's go get the third important file we're going to need. Let's open up Google and type in AEON User Group and click Search. You'll see on the top of the list AEON Laser USA Operator Group. This is a Facebook group, and you'll need to request admission into this group. All you have to do is answer a few questions and click Submit. Once accepted, you will be able to access the Facebook group. Since I am already a member, when I click on this search result, it takes me right to my Facebook AEON User Group page. Now I'm going to click on the Files tab. This tab will take me to a location where there are a lot of AEON related downloadable files. The file I will be looking for is the Material Rapid Test Lightburn file. This is a file that you will send to the laser. This file will have the laser cut out an engrave/cut gauge that you can use on different materials. This gauge will help you to determine the settings you need for cutting and engraving. It's really a nice little tool to have. So now let's click on the file called Material Rapid Test Lightburn File v3.lbrn. When clicked, it will take you to a post by Danny Martinez. Click on the file once again and it will copy to your Downloads folder. Open up your Downloads folder and select the file and cut and paste it into the folder that we created on our desktop. Okay, we now have the 3 files that we need to get this laser cutting and engraving. So now let's turn on the Mira 7 and also the exhaust fan. Now grab the USB cable that was provided by AEON and connect one end into the USB port of the laser. I added a 90-degree adapter so that it fits flush with the side of the machine. Now connect the other end of the USB cable into your computer. If your cable is not long enough, just connect a USB extension cable to it and you'll be fine. Now let's go back to our desktop and open the Mira 7 Important Files folder. And let's double click on the lightburn.exe file. Doing this will start the Lightburn install process on your computer. Once the install process ends, the Launch Lightburn box should be highlighted. Go ahead and click Finish now. This will start up the Lightburn program. Once the program opens, since this is a new install, it will immediately prompt you for license information. Since Lightburn offers a free month trial, you can choose that option, or you can enter in the license key that AEON provided to you for buying your laser. This license key will be emailed to you about the time your laser is being shipped to your house. I took advantage of the free 30-day trial and selected that option. I will enter in my license key after my trial has expired. It's totally up to you. Once activated, click OK to continue. Lightburn will immediately pop up an empty device list window because it does not recognize your laser yet. We will have to help it out a bit by using one of our important files. All you have to do is click Import and direct it to the location of the Mira 7 driver. Well, we know that that file is in our Mira 7 Important Files folder that we created on the desktop. So let's direct Lightburn to that location. Once there, Lightburn will recognize the file based on the .lbdev extension. Click and highlight the file Mira 7 USB.lbdev and click Open. And now the device list shows the Mira 7 USB. Now let's click OK to continue. After a few seconds, the Lightburn program will now show the Mira 7 USB in the device list on the bottom right hand corner. So now that the Lightburn software can communicate with the Mira 7, let's try sending a file to the laser. We'll do that by clicking on File, Open, and go into the Mira 7 Important Files folder on the desktop and selecting the Material Rapid Test Lightburn file v3. Let's go ahead and highlight it and let's click Open. The design of this file is now loaded on Lightburn's artboard. I'll move the design over to the center of the page and I'll zoom in a bit. You can now see the design the laser is going to process. This job will engrave and cut at different speeds and power settings to give you a guideline to select your speed and power settings for your material. And on the right side of the page, you will see the Cut and Layers window. This window will contain all the layers or processes for this job, each having its own speed and power setting. Now let's move down a bit and set the job origin location. Setting this location will tell the laser your starting point. This is totally a user preference setting. I like setting my origin on the top right corner, but sometimes that might change depending on the current project. One more thing before I send this job to the laser. I want to edit the material type to 1/8 inch maple plywood because that's the material I'm going to load into the laser bed. So I click on the type tool and I move up to change the size of the letters. Once satisfied, I type in 1/8 inch maple plywood and I think this job is ready. So now all I have to do is send the job to the laser. I move the cursor over to the send button and I click it. Once clicked, it will pop up a window and show you the name of the file that it's going to send. You can change the name if you want to make it easier to identify, but I'm just going to leave it as is. So now I'll click the OK button and Lightburn will send this job to the controller on the laser. So let's go over to the laser and do a few more things and let's get this job cutting. Since our laser and fan has already been powered on, let's open the laser door and load a piece of 1/8 inch unmasked maple plywood. I place the material on the bed of the crumb tray and I immediately notice that the material is not flat. Since I want the material to be as flat as possible, I place 2 high-powered magnets onto the edge of the wood, allowing the magnet to stick to the crumb tray. I do this on 2 sides to flatten the material onto the bed. Once the magnets are in place, the material is now flat on the crumb tray. If the material is bowed or high in some areas, it will affect the focus and could affect the cut in those areas. So always try to get your material as flat as possible. So by default, whenever your laser is powered on, the directional arrows will move the printer head in the left, right, and back and forth direction. So next, I like to ensure that my material is lower than my autofocus pin. Doing this will ensure you don't crash your material into the autofocus pin and damage it. So to lower my material or the laser bed, I press the ZU button. This will highlight the Z move on the controller panel. All I have to do now is press the right arrow button and it will lower my bed. Once I am satisfied that it is lower than my autofocus pin, I hit the escape button and this will take me back to my default power on settings. Now I safely move the printer head over my material to ensure that the autofocus pin is well and safely above my material. When done and satisfied, I press the reset button and this will move my printer head back to the home position. I am now ready to do an autofocus. So I press the directional buttons and move the printer head and center it over my material. Once I am happy with the location, I will press the ZU button. This will change the menu on the controller. I will then scroll down until autofocus is highlighted. Once it is highlighted, I will click enter. After hitting enter, the bed will slowly raise in contact and push up on the autofocus pin. Once the autofocus pin triggers the autofocus sensor, it will stop and lower a bit. Your autofocus has now been set. Now let's fetch the file that we sent over from the computer. I'll do this by pressing the file button. The display will now show the file name material that we sent over earlier. Make sure that that file is highlighted and click enter. You will now see the file displayed in color on the controller's display panel, along with all the processes. Now it's time to set the origin and frame it. I'll do this by moving the laser pointer to the top right area of my material and pressing the directional arrow buttons on the controller. Once I'm satisfied with the location, I press the origin button. Then I press the frame button. And now you'll see the printer head frame your job. This is the actual footprint of your cut job. So there's only one thing left to do. Let's close the door to the laser printer and let's go ahead and begin this job by pressing the start button. Well guys, these are all the steps I took to do my first cut on my Mira 7. So as a newbie to the Mira 7, I was a bit intimidated with all the setup, but once you dive in and get your hands dirty and start working with the machine, you get a little more confident and things get easier and easier. So I know if I can do it, you can too. These are the steps I took, and I'm pretty sure that there are other ways to do it, but I just wanted to share with you what worked for me. So this wraps up another video. I hope this helps you to get your first cut started on your Mira 7. So until my next video, have a blessed day and see you soon.